welcome back to 100 Blocks in 2025. Today's block is a little bit fun because I love it when a block looks like it's made a certain way, but it's actually made much easier. So that's what we're going to do today, the Star of Hope. Let's take a look at the block. All right, here's our block. It's in the Farmer's Wife book, page 215. It's number 88, the Star of Hope. And I've changed the block a little bit, and I'm going to tell you exactly how we're going to do that as well. But let's look at it for just a minute. So what I see in the diagram is one big square, a few half square triangles around the outside, and a little square. Now look at the actual block diagram for a moment. And what I see here is when the block is put together, it appears as though it's sort of a half square triangle, and one whole side of it is one big triangle, and the other side is a smaller triangle with a bunch of spiky points. I think that block is really cool, and it's all dependent on how we turn this last half square triangle in the row. So by having all of the points sort of head up and point towards the corner like that, but just turning these last two blocks gives the block this appearance of being one big long triangle, and that's going to be really fun. Now, we know the block has to finish at 6.5 inches, so here's the tricky thing that I'm going to do with this particular block. So first I'm going to start with a square that's 5.5 inches. That gives us this outside row here being a 1.5 inch row. So then I know that my little square right here is going to be 1.5 inches. That's very easy math. The trick comes in is doing the rest of the math, because 4 goes into 5 a little harshly. So to make our life a lot easier, we're going to make 5 squares right here, and that way each one of our half square triangles will finish at 1.5, and we'll be able to sew a line on this side and a line on that side, and of course one of those rows, whether it be the side row or the top row, will have this little square. So instead of making 4 half square triangles on each side, or 8 total, we're going to make 10, and we're going to do that by cutting ourselves 5 background squares that are 2 inches and 5 foreground squares that are 2 inches. And you can see what's indicated here is red. I've decided to use my floral. So these are going to be my spiky little points. The rest is cut out of my focus floral. In order to make the half square triangles, they're 2-inch squares. I need 5 of each to do that. I'm going to go ahead and make those half square triangles the same way we always do. Putting the 2 squares together face to face, we're going to draw a diagonal line down the center of the block, sew 1/4 inch on both sides, and cut them apart. And then we're going to use our handy trimmer A from our Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer to trim them to size and press them open, and we'll come back here with our finished squares. So our half square triangles are all complete, and I'm going to show you exactly how we're going to lay out the block. So let's follow the side here, and you can see we're just going to turn all of the points so that they sort of head towards this upper corner until we get down to the bottom. And obviously we have no seam allowances in there, so it doesn't look like it fits. When we get to the bottom, we want our fabric to be angled in such a way that it creates this long line. So we're going to turn our block just like so. And I've already finished the row at the top, so let's see what the row at the top looks like. So there we go. So I've sewed the row at the top, all the points again sort of heading towards this corner, pointing of the triangle, sort of heading towards the corner, and then we've turned this one so it creates this nice diagonal line. And as you can see, when we put our 5 together, they fit the block perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and sew my top row to this square, and then I'll finish this row, and before I finish, I'll add the square to the top of it, and then it will fit nicely on the side of the block. And then we'll see all the magic happen. All right, so we've gone ahead and sewed the top on, and then we added this row right here with this outer block, and then look at the magic. So now we have this long straight line right here that looks like a triangle, and then we have the little triangle here in the center with the spiky points. Now, if you had a solid fabric here in this as this fabric, it would look even more magic. Because I chose to use this focus floral, you can sort of see where the seams are. But in the quilt, it's going to be really confusing as to where that line is. And so it's kind of a magic block. It makes a pretty magical little triangle thing here. And it really is very difficult to see how the block goes together. Isn't that fun? You didn't know you were going to do a magic block today. And I don't think that the extra half square triangle that we put in there really takes away from the block at all. We really did that because when we were trying to figure out the math, we could have sized up a little bit. We could have sized down on that big square and sized up a little bit on the outside and gotten those 5 blocks across. But 5 doesn't really divide into 6 very well. It comes out at like 1.2. So it's just gonna make the math so much more complicated on you. So we went ahead and we changed that math, adding that extra half square triangle. I think the block looks fine and it made our lives a whole lot easier. So just remember that if something's not coming out right or the math isn't quite exactly what you want it to be, just start from that outer size that you need the block to be and kind of come in a little bit and make the math as easy on yourself as possible. So you can change a pattern if you want. You can add pieces, you can subtract pieces, you can make things bigger or smaller so that it makes the math a whole lot better. And if the block is a little tiny bit different, you know, some blocks it makes a big deal, but for this particular one, it's a little tiny bit different. It really doesn't matter. So I hope you got something out of this particular block and enjoy making your Star of Hope. And I'll see you next time on the web at cabinquilters.com.